A very good evening and welcome to the national broadcast. I am Malsha Dharmavardhana.
A very good evening to you. I am Dishan Veerakon and here are your headlines for tonight.
Swift measures from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka for the economic revival under the directions of the President. Refinance facilities worth 150 billion rupees for the businesses affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. A three-member committee to inquire into illegal activities of finance and finance leasing businesses. The Colombo Fort Magistrate orders the CID to enforce the arrest warrants against former Central Bank Governor Arjun Mahendran and the other suspect.
Now in your top story for tonight, the traditional invitation for the annual Asala procession of the Ruhunu Kathargama Devalaya was presented to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa today. The invitation was extended by the bus Nayaka Nilame of the Kathargama Devalaya, Dilruwan Rajapaksa. The annual Asala procession of the Ruhunu Kathargama Devalaya will be held from July 21st to August 4th. The main procession of the Devalaya is set to take place on August 3rd and the festival will be concluded with the water cutting ceremony scheduled to be held on August 4th. The procession will be held while adhering to health security guidelines. However, the organizers have mentioned that the devotees will not be given the opportunity to witness the procession this year. Several contributions have been made to the Itukama COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund. DASA group of companies has presented a total of 30,000 locally produced surgical face masks to the Prime Minister today. The contribution was made by the director of DASA group of companies, Isuru Gunadasa. The first ever water purification device assembled in the country was handed over to the Prime Minister by director of the Hamsa Private Limited, Buddhika Chaturanga today. Chairman of Gold Coast Limited Korea, Song Jae-hae, was also present at this occasion. Meanwhile, owner of the Mulathivu Upcountry Limited, Mahalingam Dayabaran, made a contribution worth 400,000 rupees to the COVID-19 fund. Now in more news, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa assured that the necessary setting will be facilitated to conduct a free and fair election while prioritizing health security. These remarks were made when the President met with the chairman and the members of the Election Commission at the Presidential Secretariat this morning to discuss over the conduct of a health protective, free and fair election. The Health Ministry has submitted necessary guidelines to conduct the election amid the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the first election to be held under such circumstances. The President said that the complete support of the government will be rendered to the Election Commission to successfully conduct the electoral process while prioritizing health and safety. The government was fully committed in the past couple of months within a proper plan and strategies. The President further said that these efforts were taken to safeguard the nation from the deadly pandemic and not with the desire to hold the election. President Rajapaksa said that health procedures which were in force for the last couple of months should be carried forward continuously. He pointed out that any health-related issues will not occur as the general public is fully aware of the present situation in the country. Chairman of the election Mahinda Deshapriya mentioned that the preliminary plans related to the election have been compiled and all relevant authorities, including the defence sector, will be included into this process. In the meantime, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka implements new credit schemes with the aim to support the revival of the economy, extending many benefits for the banking system and the general public. The new credit schemes were introduced in accordance to the strictures directed by the President to the top officials of the Central Bank last evening. During the meeting held at the Presidential Secretariat, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa emphasized that the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has the responsibility of rebuilding the economy. The government has put forward its proposals for economic revival. However, the President pointed out that the Central Bank is yet to extend its support for the proposals thus far. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said that not only have the central banks in big countries, but also in small countries have taken many crucial steps. He then said that the authorities have failed to use any tool in this regard. He said that the central bank has not done anything towards this matter. He added that the government owes a huge sum of money to companies due to mismanagement in the past. Let this money be kept as a security for banks to release loans to them, he added, so that the banks could run the economy. He said that the government has to take the blame for the conduct of the central bank. He directed the attention of the central bank officials on the measures implemented by governments of other countries to save their small-scale and medium-scale businesses. However, President questioned whether the same efforts have been taken in the country. He said that this shows as if the central bank is attempting to hinder the government effort and trying to impede the duties of the president. He said that he does not wish to assume this tone if the central bank stood by their duties. He said that the officials were still a part of the bank when the central bank bond scam was executed. He further said that if they could extend support to commit this crime, there is no reason for all of the officials of the central bank to not join hands with him to deliver justice. The president further said that the people of this country have bestowed a great power on him to build the country. Therefore, he requested all the officials to allow him to do so. The president said that the central banks has a responsibility to present a proposal to conquer this situation as the top economic experts are rendering their service at the central bank. He said that the central bank officials have failed to extend any guidance or come forward to support him. President Rajapaksa said that if the central bank is not on the same page with his suggestions, then the strategies to revive the economy should be presented to him by tomorrow morning. Subsequently, the monetary bond was convened under the patronage of Governor of the Central Bank, Professor W.D. Laxman, last night following the meeting with the President. The Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has decided to introduce new credit schemes under Section 83 of the Monetary Law Act No. 58 of 1949. Accordingly, in addition to the already disbursed 27.5 billion rupees under the refinance scheme introduced on March 27, 2020, the central bank will provide funding to licensed commercial banks at the concessionary rate of 1% against the pledge of a broad spectrum of collateral on the condition that LCBs in turn will on-lend to domestic businesses at 4% while ensuring the greatest possible distribution of this facility. This scheme, along with the existing refinance scheme, will provide 150 billion rupees in total to the businesses affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has also decided to reduce the statutory reserve ratio applicable on all rupee deposit liabilities of licensed commercial banks by 2%, with effect from the reserve maintenance period that commenced on June 16, 2020. This reduction in the SRR injects around 115 billion rupees of additional liquidity to the domestic money market, enabling the financial system to expedite credit flows to the economy while reducing the cost of funds of LCBs. The financial sector is expected to pass the benefit of high level of liquidity and the reduced cost of funds to the economy without delay by increasing lending to businesses and households at a lower cost. In addition, the construction sector enterprises will be provided with a facility to borrow from LCBs using guarantees issued by the government equivalent to the amount due on account of contracts carried out in the past under a new dedicated credit scheme funded by the central bank and made available at the aforementioned concessionary rates. The central bank has pointed out that the gradual easing of restrictions for mobility has contributed to the resumption of economic activities in the manufacturing sector. Production sub-index reported an index value of 51.1 in May 2020 compared to 3.5 reported in April, reflecting a significant expansion in volume produced, particularly in manufacturing of food, beverages and manufacturing of textiles and wearing apparel sectors. The Monetary Board will continue to monitor economic and financial market developments and will take further policy and regulatory measures to support a sustained revival of economic activity in the period ahead, in accordance to the statement issued by the central bank. Meanwhile, heads of state and private banking institutions made remarks to national television over the newly introduced special concessionary schemes.
Today morning, in our ALCO decision-making process, we decided to bring our rates down close to about 1%. So that actually it's a benefit to the customers, the borrowing customers. So that's going to happen immediately. And that would also help the banks to have more funds available for providing these facilities for the COVID-affected industries and also the other companies who are coming out with their new operations and all. With regard to the moratorium, with regard to the other announcement, which is increasing the Saubhagya scheme, now there again, under the earlier announced 50 billion, we have already processed and close to more than 2 billion applications we have sent. And so far we have received about 1.3 billion applications approved by the central bank, and we are in the process of granting. And most of that we have already funded using our own funds to support the customers. So enhancement would naturally give more avenues to use these for productive companies, because we couldn't entertain all the requests came from our customers to support under this refinancing scheme. Now that is announced, 50 billion to 150 billion, that would be a good opportunity to manage almost all the requests that have come in from our customers. And earlier we limited it only to the 25 million per customer. That was the request when the Saubhagya scheme was announced. But now that also we should be able to hopefully go to some higher level, waiting for some instructions on that. But those are two positive development. Again, coming back to the statutory reserve requirement, I think reducing from 4% to 2%, I think it's in line with the some other regional countries as well. For example, India, their statutory reserve requirement is 3%. Then Malaysia, it's around 2%, Thailand 1%. I think Singapore, there's no statutory reserve requirement. So when you compare with this, I think the reduction in from 4 to 2% is a very positive move.
And the beauty or the importance of this statutory reserve ratio is when a commercial bank deposits this money with central bank, commercial bank is not getting any interest on that. So therefore, that's basically that could be considered as a free money. So when a central bank releases that money, obviously all commercial banks get an additional comfort, additional funds without any the interest. So therefore, I strongly believe all the commercial banks will be able to release this the money by way of loans and advances to all the community, all the the business community by way of various loan schemes. So in other words, we should be able to immediately look at and then come out with various loan schemes at a very, very concessional rates, which is absolutely important, because the government is always looking at now to maintain these lending rates at a single digit rate. So I'm sure that this will be a great help for the entire economy. Through this system, the COVID affected people will be able to borrow more and more loans for them to sustain in the short and the medium run. So that's a great thing, and I think we being a business community as well as the banking community, this is a welcoming decision taken by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka through the government and the President of Sri Lanka. Thank you very much.
A committee has been appointed to inquire into illegal activities of finance leasing businesses and unauthorized finance bodies. The committee have been appointed by Governor of Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Professor W.D. Lakshman. The committee will be chaired by Director General of Legal Affairs of the Presidential Secretariat, Attorney at Law, Harigupta Rohanadira, Director of Legal and Compliance Department of Central Bank, KGP Sirikumara, and Director of Department of Supervision of Non-Bank Financial Institutions of Central Bank, J.P. Gamlat, have been appointed as the member of the committee. The committee has been tasked to report on the issues pertaining to unregulated operations in the finance and finance leasing business and unacceptable practices in the regulated establishment carrying out finance and finance leasing business. The committee had direct to submit recommendations and further steps that can be introduced to mitigate the identified issues. The committee has to be submit the relevant report within 14 days. The central bank governor has directed the committee to involve experts and professionals in banking and legal sector in this regard.
Now, former governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Ajit Niwad Kabra, says that the central bank bears the responsibility to present plans and strategies for the revival of the economy. After mitigating the COVID-19 outbreak in the country, he praised the president for directing instructions to bring the relevant authorities back into the right track at a time when the central bank has failed to take necessary initiatives.
The central bank is the economic advisor to the government. So as a result of that, the central bank is the economic advisor to the government. So as a result of that, the central bank is the economic advisor to the government. So as a result of that responsibility, the central bank has a duty to come forward and advise the government as to how the government and the central bank and the economy in general should function in order to come out of this COVID-19 situation. Now, that responsibility, to my mind, as the President quite rightly mentioned, has been neglected by the central bank. So, being reminded of that and reminding them to get down to business and to come up with some plans is a very timely wake-up call, which I think the President did it, and that's very refreshing that he did it as well. The second point is the central bank has various tools to deal with all these types of crises. So central bank must use those tools. If they don't have a particular tool, they must create one. That's the responsibility of the central bank, because after all, they are the advisor to the government. They are the ones who are charged with the responsibility of maintaining economic and price stability. They have to maintain the system stability of the financial structure of our country. So in that sense, they must get down to business and make sure that they develop the instruments and then come up with solutions to deal with this problem. They haven't still done that. Personally, I have put out several revival plans which they should have considered. Not only mine, they should consider many others as well, because there will be so many people with ideas. They themselves have an excellent team. We have an economic research unit at the central bank and some brilliant officers, young officers, who have very good ideas. Those must be considered. They must be heard. Then the hierarchy of the central bank must make use of those talents as well as those ideas to come up with a solution that will deal with the current situation. This is a complex situation. There's no doubt about that. It's a situation that can drag our economy down. So that is why all must be awake. I think the President gave a wake-up call, told them be awake and to come up with various methods by which this can be dealt with, and they should get down to it now. And we must also understand that the financial stability means that those financial institutions are also protected. Recently, they allowed the finance company to fail, and at this particular moment of time, when the country is going through a massive crisis economically, allowing one of the largest and one of the oldest institutions to fail is itself unacceptable. They should have never allowed that to happen. That shows a complete neglect of duty and an insensitivity which should not be tolerated. So that must be put right. There must be instruments that are used to put those companies back on track. There is a deposit insurance fund that was created in 2010. Make use of that. Make use of the other opportunities to bring in investment. Create the new conducive environment for that, and then deal with it. So I hope the central bank will listen to the President and make sure that they act according to their responsibilities so that the economic stability of our country is maintained for the future.
Now, in the meantime, the percentage of recoveries from COVID-19 infections in the country has increased up to 72.64 at present. A total of 26 patients were recovered and discharged from hospitals today. Accordingly, a total of 1,397 patients have been fully recovered and discharged from hospitals thus far. A total of 8 COVID-19 patients were reported in the country today. 5 of them were identified as returnees from Chennai and 2 of them were returnees from Bangladesh. 1 of them were identified as a Navy officer. The total recovered COVID-19 patients in the country has exceeded the COVID-19 patients currently receiving treatments in hospitals. A total of 1,397 patients have recovered from the COVID-19, while the percentage stands at 72.64%. So far, a total of only 515 COVID-19 infected patients are still under medical care in hospitals. This is a percentage of 26.78%. The Sri Lanka Navy has said that the necessary measures have been taken to hinder the arrival of migrants from other parts of the world, including COVID-19 patients through sea routes illegally. The coronavirus is rapidly spreading in India at present. Therefore, Minister Douglas Devananda has requested the fisheries communities to be alert over the fishermen and their vessels engaged in fisheries activities in the seas surrounding India. Now, 2 flights consisting of Sri Lankans stranded in India without being able to return to the country, and several foreign nationals returned to the country last night and this morning respectively. The flight that arrived from Chennai consisted of 53 persons, while the other flight from Mumbai consisted of 27 persons. These persons have been identified as Indian nationals who were a part of a naval ship crew. All persons that arrived through the airport were directed to PCR test. Now, taking a look at the coronavirus situation in China. Scores of domestic flights in and out of Beijing were cancelled today as officials ramped up efforts to contain a new coronavirus outbreak in the Chinese capital. Chinese authorities reported over 30 new cases of the virus in Beijing as of yesterday, bringing the total number of infections to more than 120 over the past 6 days.
Scores of domestic flights in and out of Beijing were canceled on Wednesday as officials ramped up efforts to contain a new coronavirus outbreak in the Chinese capital. Chinese officials recorded 31 new infections on Tuesday, bringing the total to 137 cases since last Thursday. It's the worst resurgence of the disease in the city since February, and authorities on Tuesday reacted by raising Beijing to a level 2 alert, reversing a downgrade to level 3 just 10 days earlier. Aviation data tracker Veriflight showed about 60% of scheduled flights to and from Beijing Capital International Airport have been or will likely be canceled as of Wednesday afternoon. The city's roads and highways have still been open and people have continued going to work, but movement in and out of the city has been strictly controlled and residents in high-risk areas must be quarantined and tested. The new outbreak has been traced to the Shinfadi Wholesale Food Center, where thousands of tons of vegetables, fruit and meat are traded every day.
New Zealand has confirmed 2 new cases of the coronavirus, both related to recent travel from the UK, ending a 24-day streak of no new infections in the country.
After returning to normality last week, New Zealand announced on Tuesday that it has 2 new cases of the coronavirus, ending a 24-day streak of no new infections in the country. The new infections, both related to recent travel from the UK, are a setback to the country, which lifted all social and economic restrictions except border controls last week, declaring it had no new or active cases. Dr. Ashley Bloomfield is the country's Director General of Health.
A new case is something that we hoped we wouldn't get, but it is also something that we expected and we have planned for. That is why we have geared up and continue to gear up our contact tracing at a local level and national capacity and capability, as well as having our excellent testing capability so we can respond rapidly.
What I would re-emphasise is that our border is critical.
Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern had warned that new cases may come up as New Zealanders return home, and some others were allowed in under special conditions.
We have had 2 cases. These are 2 women.
The 2 new cases were women aged in their 30s and 40s who'd visited a dying parent in Wellington. They are both now self-isolating. It now takes the total number of cases recorded in the country to 1,506. Deaths from the disease remain at 22.
Meanwhile, India has registered 2,000 deaths in the last 24 hours, taking the death toll from the disease to 11,903. The number of infections surged to 354,000. The World Health Organization has welcomed the findings of the University of Oxford study that found dexamethasone, a widely available steroid, helped to save the lives of people with severe COVID-19. More than 8.28 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 patients have been recorded across the world. More than 4.3 million have recovered, while at least 447,000 have died from the disease thus far. More than 2,000 coronavirus-related deaths were reported in the past 24 hours, almost 5 times the number reported on the previous day. The coronavirus pandemic in India crossed the grim milestone of 350,000. The India states have recorded 10,914 fresh infections in the last 24 hours. Maharashtra, which has recorded the maximum number of coronavirus-related deaths in the country, reported more than 1,400 deaths yesterday. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has welcomed the findings of the breakthrough study on a steroid treatment for people suffering from severe cases of COVID-19. World Health Organization Director General said in a statement that this is the first treatment to be shown to reduce mortality in patients with COVID-19 requiring oxygen or ventilator support. The UK researchers shared initial insight about the result of the trial with World Health Organization, which will update its clinical guidance on how and when the drug should be used in COVID-19 after receiving more detailed information. Steroids that have been used since 1960s to reduce inflammation in a range of conditions including inflammatory disorders are certain for cancers.
Now, Germany appealed to the public yesterday to download a new smartphone app to help break the chain of coronavirus infections, one of several such apps that European governments hoped would revive travel and tourism safely.
Germany has largely got its coronavirus infections under control, and now its government is telling its citizens to download a smartphone app to keep it that way. It launched its new contact tracing app on Tuesday for Apple and Android devices. Like some other tracing apps, it uses your phone's Bluetooth to measure close contacts between people and issues a warning if one of them later tests positive. Helge Braun is the head of the German Chancellery.
Das ist nicht die erste Corona-App weltweit.
This is not the world's first Corona app, but I'm pretty confident it's the world's best. To download and use it is a small step for every one of us, but a big step in the fight against the pandemic.
Für die Pandemiebekämpfung.
The app has mixed public opinion, and in April the project nearly went off the rails. Berlin had to abandon its initial approach to the software on concerns the data was stored on a central server, which privacy experts said could allow people's relationships to be spied on. Germany joins Italy, Poland and Latvia in launching apps based on technology from Apple and Alphabet's Google that they say preserves privacy by logging Bluetooth contacts on the devices themselves. In news coinciding with the German launch, European Union members agreed technical standards for national apps to talk to each other, a step towards making it possible to trace infections across borders as the peak summer tourist season approaches.
A day after Peruvian President Martin Vizcarra called the coronavirus outbreak a more serious crisis in the country's history, street vendors clashed with riot police who tried to remove them amid a nationwide lockdown.
Tension on the streets of Lima Tuesday as riot police tried to remove hundreds of street vendors. Many vendors fought back but were pulled away despite their efforts. Authorities took the forceful approach amid a nationwide lockdown to combat the country's coronavirus outbreak. With over 230,000 cases of the virus and over 6,500 deaths in Peru, President Martin Vizcarra on Monday said the crisis was unprecedented.
We knew this disease was going to generate a most serious crisis in our history, never before seen, and that it was going to affect health, economy, employment, that is to say, the whole of society.
Peru's economic activity sank over 40% year-on-year in April, its worst ever percentage drop in outputs as the lockdown slammed the brakes on key industries like mining. Vizcarra said he would work to create more than 1 million new jobs. For people whose family members are sick or those who've had relatives die, an income is especially needed.
Right now, I have looked for money to be able to recover my father's body. He's my father, so I will spend the money, but right now, various people are not holding funerals for their relatives.
Peru's unemployment doubled between March and May, intensifying the coronavirus crisis gripping the country.
Now shifting focus to Hong Kong, the rides are back in motion in Hong Kong Disneyland as it gets ready for its grand reopening on Thursday with face masks, temperature checks and other health and safety restrictions in place.
The rides are back in motion at Hong Kong Disneyland as it gets ready for its grand reopening on Thursday with face masks, temperature checks and other health and safety restrictions in place. After being closed for nearly 5 months, a health declaration will be required to reserve tickets. Parkgoers can still interact with Disney favorites Mickey and Minnie Mouse, but photo ops will remain off limits for now. Senior VP of Operations Tim Sipko says with Hong Kong's borders still closed, the park is focusing on attracting local residents.
Well, with reducing the capacity of the park overall, our focus coming out of the gate is going to be the local Hong Kong market.
The majority of the park's shopping and dining locations will restart operations with controlled capacity, and hotel services will also resume gradually. Shanghai had the first Disneyland reopen last month, showing the world what a socially distanced theme park would look like. And Hong Kong's other major theme park, Ocean Park, reopened on Saturday to thousands of visitors. Lawmakers approved a massive bailout plan last month to keep it running for another year.
Now for a few court news in brief. Colombo High Court Champa Janaki Rajaratna ordered to issue summons to former MP Hirunika Premachandra to appear before the court on July 10th for the incident related to the alleged abduction and detention of a youth. The former parliamentarian and her attorney were not present when the case was taken up for hearing. Accordingly, the summons were issued for the former MP to appear before court on July 10th. Colombo Fort Magistrate Ranga Disanayaka ordered the Criminal Investigation Department today to enforce the arrest warrant issued against former Central Bank Governor Arjun Mahendran and Director of Perpetual Treasuries Limited Gadya Punchiheva for the incident related to the alleged misappropriation of over 52 billion of government bond at 2 auctions by Central Bank of Sri Lanka in 2016.
Now, the Ministry of Education says steps should be taken to provide transportation facilities for the school children adhering to the guidelines issued by the health authorities. Representatives of several school transportation associations agreed yesterday to provide transport facilities while adhering to the health instructions, including the transportation of students in accordance to the number of seating facilities of vehicles, maintaining physical distancing, disinfection of vehicles and compulsory face mask wearing. A meeting was held under the patronage of Ministers Dallas Alha Peruma and Mahinda Amaravira at the Education Ministry yesterday over the issues pertaining to the transportation of students after the reopening of schools. Since the closing time of schools is said to be carried within 3 stages, the attention was directed on the possibility to limit the stipulated stages to 2 stages, considering the extended time periods for the children to remain in school premises. Meanwhile, the government has taken steps to grant scholarships for a marketing course through an online platform for the students who have obtained 9 A's in the GCE Ordinary Level examination. This will be carried out under the Yalinagitimu Sri Lanka program. The inauguration ceremony was held under the patronage of Secretary to the Ministry NHM Chitra Nanda at the Education Ministry premises. A total of 10,201 students can submit their applications to enroll with the course via www.slim.lk from July 1st to 15th.
A meeting between the Election Commission and the representatives of the political parties was held at the Election Commission Secretariat in Rajagiriya this morning. The attention of the meeting was directed on exhibiting the photographs and nomination numbers of the candidates at the political party offices. Government decides to grant a concessionary loan scheme with a 4% interest to uplift the private bus industry. Speaking at a media briefing today, Minister Mahinda Amaravira said that the Cabinet of Ministers have granted approval for this initiative. Minister Mahinda Amaravira said that the new concessionary loan scheme has been introduced in order to purchase low-flat modern buses. He said that the bus owners restored to finance leasing companies to obtain loan under high interest rate to purchase buses. Accordingly, he said that the government has decided to grant this concessionary loan scheme for the bus owners. He said that this will be applicable for the SLTB as well. He said that through this initiative, the Park and Drive program will be initiated.
Now, in more local stories, it was revealed that the Presidential Commission of Inquiry on Easter Sunday terrorist attacks that the extremist group led by Zaharam Hashim had plotted to create a similar unrest in the eastern province in parallel to the unrest occurred in Darga town in Aludgama in 2014. Retired Major General Andrew Lal Pereira, who was the Eastern Provincial Commander of Security Forces, recorded a statement with the Presidential Commission yesterday. He stated that Pooja Jayasundara served as the senior DIG of the Eastern Province during this period, and Nandan Munusinghe also served in the same province. He said that their representatives were present at intelligence information review meetings held once a month during this period. Responding to a query raised by the Commission over the visible changes occurred in the eastern provincial communities, the retired commander said that several indications were surfaced over an Arabization occurred in Kathankudi and Kinya areas, yet such attempts were brought under control with the information obtained by the intelligence divisions. He said that politician MLAM Hizbullah was engaged in political activities in Kathankudi area vastly. He also said that former Minister Rauf Hakim had influenced high officials to remove all camps established in the vicinity of Digawapia by him. He further added that the intelligence divisions were able to recover information pertaining to an alleged assault on a Buddhist monk or a Buddhist temple in the eastern province by the members of the Tawheed Jamaat organization following the unrest in the Dargah town. However, he said that next day he summoned and warned the conspirators, which avoided the potential assault. He said that with the new government in 2015, the intelligence service continued to decay and collapse due to various reasons, leading to transfers and arrest of the intelligence officers, paving the path for Zaharan and the group to carry out such a large-scale destruction in the country. And now that's a wrap of tonight's Primetime News. Until we meet again next time, do take care and good night.
Good night.